Well, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call our meeting to order at 5 o'clock. So, welcome, and it's nice to see a lot of people out tonight. Has everybody had an opportunity to look at the agenda? Any additions? Councillor Connex?
I would move that we adopt the agenda as presented.
Thank you. No additions? All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay, next item, adoption of the minutes. Has everybody had an opportunity to look at the minutes from the previous meeting? Any errors or omissions? Councillor Hoekstra?
Thank you. Are you Deputy Mayor Gillison? Okay.
I'll work with that.
Who are you? Okay. Yeah. So just a couple of things in there. Guy Lapointe was a staff that was present at that meeting, and he's not listed. He moved into camera with us, and so that's not listed as well. And then under adoption of minutes, it says Councillor Ross informed Council of recommended updates to the January 14, 2018, and it should be 2019 minutes.
Any other additions there or changes? No? Okay. Councillor Hoekstra?
My apologies. I just had a question around the statement under presentations by the catering. Kind of 2/3 of the way down on page 2, it says the city has a very small community center where anyone can book the use of the kitchen, which can create many problems. What was that comment related to? Is it our small community center? I just didn't understand what that was capturing. Do we know?
If I recall, that was a statement made by the Red Deer caterers as a reason why council should consider their proposal. Was that with the small community center that's currently there, or what they consider a small or community center, the cross traffic that was created.
Any other changes or amendments to the minutes? Councillor Hoekstra?
I move that the minutes be accepted as amended.
All in favor? Okay, we're going to make a slight change to our agenda as far as order. I think with the presentation, we have time to do that now before our public hearings. We'll ask to move to item number 6, presentations, Lacona Athletic Park Association business plan. If they wish to come forward now, we'll proceed with that at this time.
Good evening. Thanks for making some time for us.
Welcome, and if you just would like to introduce yourselves, even though I think most of us know who you are, but if you could do that again, please, that would be nice.
Of course. So my name is Darren Berg. I'm the newly elected chair of the Lacona Athletic Park Association for 2019.
My name is Jay Adamson. I'm the vice chair for 2019.
My name is Darren Gannon. I'm board member, elected board member.
Well, welcome, gentlemen, and go ahead with your presentation.
Okay. Well, I guess, again, we appreciate the opportunity to come here and give you an update on where we are. We have been talking with Deborah and Sandy a little bit, and Matt. I guess just to start off, I think you got the letter which we attached to the front of our business plan, and I think it is very important just to point out a couple of things in there, because it is actually quite simple. So, well, maybe I should start with, no, I'll get to that a little bit later. So yeah, what's the Athletic Park Association? Why do we do it? And so we operate the field house and the football field, or field, not just the football field, and again, it's our intent to, due to increased usage, to expand both the field house, expand the field house, and through community consultation, you know, we think there's a big demand for a track as well, and so. And I think it's also important to emphasize that, you know, I guess I'll call it the recipes for success of the Lacombe Athletic Park Association since its start has been to bring together, you know, the schools, the city, the county, a lot of great volunteers, and corporate donors, and so to achieve, you know, what each one of these individual groups couldn't do, and so that's what we'd like to continue doing. So, so that, you know, we always like to skip over the first letter, but that's I think that's the most important thing of this whole business plan. So I think we're going to go through some of the details on this.
Sure.
Is that what?
So this is...
If you could speak into the mic, please, Darren, so the people at home can hear.
Sure. So this presentation, I will go through it quickly. I'll answer any questions you have at the end. It's been brought together by a lot of the members of our association that are experts in this field. It's one of the benefits of our association that we bring together so many different groups, so many different experiences. And in this, it's just as we wanted to talk after consulting with different people, including some people at the city, that we're just looking to convert up to 25% financial commitment somehow over the next little while. And that's sort of the summary of this. And the first page here is a layout of the field house plans. You can look at them, I think. The second is a drawing of where the track will go and all the field events will go. It also includes the existing field basketball courts and field house that are there. So this expansion, it includes field house expansion. When we first started this project, we came to you and other groups and said we expected to have 30 to 35,000 people per year through the park. This past year was a slower year, and it was about 50,000. And so we are in need of public washrooms. We need more dress rooms as we host bigger events. We need additional storage. We'd like to improve the accessibility for the building. We're looking at doing some enhancements that we have that we can do to handle this extra traffic that we've had to the existing area. And the goal from the very beginning here is to have installation of the international regulation track and all the associated field events. So we've provided here the capital funding budget, 10-year operating budget for you, and 10-year future capital expansion reserve budget, so that you can all look at this. We've always acted, or tried to act, fiscally responsible. We've laid out a timeline there. We'd like to confirm some financial support and administrative support from the city and Lacombe County within the next month or two. We'd like to put out get into the quote process for this. We're going to begin our fundraising in March. We're, with the assistance of the city and county, we're looking at doing providing for the grants that are available, and we'll identify other public grants, and not only public grants from different groups. We've been approached already by the Alberta Field
Athletics
Alberta, and possible assistance they can give us. They're excited about what we're doing. We hope to get confirmation of grants through the summer, and if everything goes well, we'd like to begin construction on the field house this fall, and spring 2020 next year install the track. Our capital budget is about $4 million. We've broken down the revenue parts there where it would ideally come from, and again, the asterisks by the city and the county are dependent on other grants that we're assuming at this point in time we'll get 0. Okay? Our expenditures they're all broken down in the following pages. The field house expansion is almost $1.4 million, and the track and all the field events and the storage building, including a total of, including all the groundwork and everything that has to be done, and it's laid out in the original estimates. We've added in a 10% contingency fund, and it's all been done at full, for lack of better words, retail. And in the past, what we did the first time around, what we do, we fully expect to be able to get for work we can do ourselves and get work in kind from the construction people of about 10% as well back. So we did that the first time around. That's what we're basing that on. We've included an operational budget there for the next 10 years. We'll continue to execute annual fundraising, grant applications, operational revenue generation. We utilize our volunteer resources in a fiscally responsible manner. We'll continue to hope to get support from our county, our partners, the county, city, and school board. We'll continue to put money aside for expansion of or not expansion, but for replacement for the track and the turf. And part of the money that was pledged by our corporate sponsor is agreed that it'll be put into operational funds as well. And that's what our plan is, so that we're not there. We generate some signage revenue consistently, and our capital expenditure budget, and I'll go through it a little later if you want, includes a replacement of the turf in, I believe, 2024, and again, revenues include contributions for this future capital contribution of about 25% request that might come at that time from the city and county, so that we're trying to, plan out long term. And again, that'll be less any grants that we get. Capital fundraising and efforts. Our plan is based on past couple of fundraising drives. We've provided an outline in this, and we truly think that it's more than achievable. We've already got lots of support for it. We're looking at about $500,000 up front, and about $250,000 that would be deferred income as people paid for their bigger sponsorships over time. And in the end, we want to work with the grant applications. We've been advised of what might be available. We've heard between give or take $1.6 million through different grants. I can be corrected on that, but I think that's what we're looking at. And any funding from the grant secured will be used to cover the budget shortfalls, and excess of funds to be used to be reduced what the city, county, and the LAP capital fund contributions would be, or as we work together, maybe it can be used to reduce future annual contributions from the municipal governments as well. And before I get into the numbers, if you want me to go through the numbers, I'd just like to say, when the experience that we have from doing this the first time around when building this, we had, we didn't plan as well. We came and we said, we'd like to do this, and then we came back and we said, we'd like to do that. We came back, we'd like to do this, and in the end, I think one of the things that was frustrating for past city council was that there was no solid plan in advance, and there was a perception that we would keep coming in asking for money. And this way, what we're trying to do is give a worst case scenario up front, and hoping to work together in advance with all the partners involved. The school board, the county, the city, ourselves, and our corporate supporters. So that's what we've put together in this package.
Could I add something?
Yes.
Yeah, so assuming 0 grants is our way of being fiscally responsible. And so, if we just, as far as preparing, again, if we need to scale back plans or whatever, we'll plan to do that. Yeah, I think we're confident we're going to get grants, but we're being fiscally responsible at this point, and assuming worst case.
And the other thing, besides the budget for the capital there, we do have one page there. It's projected income and expenditures, 2019 to 2029. Spreadsheet. Top left. So down a little more. That's our fundraising. That's how we break it out. Oh, it would be up from that. Sorry for that. Yeah, I think it would be that one. I know we were asked to project what additional funding we would ask annually from the city moving forward, considering we'd also be building up for a reserve fund for the track. So you've made a commitment for 19 and 20 to be at $50,000. The amount that we're looking at is an increase of $10,000 in the first year, and then 2% per year after that. I know there were some thoughts that might be higher, but we've got a plan that, shows us doing the same as we have every year and doing better than what we had budgeted. And our capital project revenues and reserves after 10 years would be enough to be ready to replace the track as well, and with a newer turf. So, without going into details, I guess it's just a matter of what would you like to ask us now, or?
Actually, I don't know, Jay, you want to talk a little bit about the track?
Yeah, I can talk about these questions. So something that, or a reason that we're really excited about this project, the field house and the expansion of the track facility, is just we see the track facility as complementary usage to what we have there already. June to August would maybe be our slower months at the park, but we view that with the development of the track and field facility, that would increase usage there. Through the day also. In some of our busy months, if the field is being used, that track will also be able to be used by other user groups. We think that the expanded facility itself, like with the field house, will be more appealing to the groups that we're bringing in, and then also continue to have them booking through us. We look, that the community usage of the track facility is not just for, when I'll talk about the variety of student athletes and youth that can be able to use it, but we also look at community use that it can get, if we're looking at maybe mom groups that can be using that for exercise, if we're looking at a surface that is softer for running groups than just running on concrete, if the weather's poor outside, you have a good footing facility that they can be using also. We look at, increase for youth, the track meets that we can host there, probably at least 4 minimum, and that's just basic of the schools that are around. But in connection with Athletics Alberta and some of their other sponsors, hopefully we can be bringing in larger track meets, especially if it's IAAF facility, and they'll also promote it for us. We know that with a facility like that, we've seen with the football field, that we have increased student athletes who are being able to participate at higher levels in university and colleges, and we're hoping that we can further expand that for more of our youth within the city. And then, just in general, we look at it as a benefit for the community, a benefit for our youth and the kids here.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We're getting a little tight on time, and I want to make sure we have enough time for questions. I would just say that I'm a huge supporter of this project. I think it's great, and I know our Rotary Club, I think, has some interest in doing something towards that to help out also. So I think you're going to see a lot of assistance coming from the different service groups, and I'm sure you had some of that come forward already. And I would hope the number would be considerably less than $1 million to the city. And I know we would have a difficult time in committing to that tonight. Now, when you talk about the grant process, and you've made applications, I believe, already, is that correct?
No, we're not. We're filling out paperwork.
Okay, yeah, I know it's long. I hope that if there's any problems or anything, I think we have people on staff that are well educated in doing grant applications, so if they can help you, I would hope that you would use those assets for sure.
In regards to that, we are consulting with both the city and the county together, so
okay,
they can give us guidance.
Okay, excellent, thank you, that's a good idea. Anyway, I will open it to questions from any councillors regarding this presentation. Councillor Connex.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Dalton. Just a clarification on the capital side. You said $1 million, and I see, I'm just looking at your project revenues, $250 in 2019, $750 in 2020, but then you have an additional $200,000 in 2024. Could you elaborate on that?
As I mentioned, that includes, that's for when the when the turf will need to be replaced. The existing turf that's there now, and that's going to be a cost of about $800,000 at that point in time. So we've kind of said that we'll use the reserves that we've been building up, plus we'll apply for grants, and if it's only $100,000, that's all we've done at. But at that point in time, we hope that the city could maintain that 25% and that you set up in a bylaw or policy. That's based, what our ask is based on, what policy or bylaw, I'm not sure which, that exists at the city that you laid down sort of as a guideline for requests that came. If we met so much criteria, don't ask for more than that. So.
But you've been putting money into reserves since the inception for the replacement of that, but you're still figuring that you'll be short $500,000 at that point, roughly.
Hopefully not, and hopefully we don't have to ask for anything. But again, we're in a point where we don't want any surprises.
No, I appreciate that, because you're right. The first go round, it was a little bit more.
Yeah,
it didn't go as well as we all would have hoped, I think. So.
Well, that's why we're trying to work with all the partners. We're going to talk to the school board as well. So.
And that would be my second question in terms of revenue from the school board. And I know from a capital perspective, having been a former school board trustee, I'm pretty sure you're not going to get a dime as far as that goes. But in terms of operating costs, I mean, $1,000 and then you're projecting up to $3,000. Me personally, I'd sure like to see them pony up a little bit more, given that they're a major benefactor of that facility. So I'm hoping you'll have that conversation. Well, yeah.
So we are right now, we're working through the lease agreement with them right now. I can't say what that's going to be. I wouldn't speculate that it's going to be very much. But we are working with them right now on hopefully having an increase in their contributions.
Thank you. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So as a event attraction, is there any other facilities between Edmonton and Calgary that have this type of facility that we could attract major events that is an economic benefit? I'm trying to sell this for yourself. So obviously, like, how many participants, what would you potentially look at for a week or event or whatever the case may be to benefit the city of Lacombe?
So right now, if we look at the way that we want to design this, and in collaboration with Athletics Alberta and with some of their partners, we've reached out to like Ellis Timing, who does the major events throughout Canada. We've gotten feedback from them already, and we've been invited to tour their facilities on things that they actually, such as Footfield and Foothills Track in Calgary, where both U of A and UC do their meets, on things that we should do and shouldn't do. So we're hoping when it's all said and done, I mean, this is one of the probably premier facilities within Alberta. Right now, if we look at just the bare minimum, if we look just at, say, high school meets, just on what's going around, and even the junior high meets, we're looking at 4 meets minimum. And so that would be, I would say, minimum again, probably at least 100 kids. But I mean, on top of that, if you want to cycle through the high school cycle of competitions, every second year we're going to be having another major competition here. Every 8 years will be at least to host a provincial meet, and so you're looking at 400 or 500 students that are competing here. And then we're hoping also through our partnership with Athletics Alberta that they can promote this facility, and then we can start looking at hopefully hosting other major competitions and meets here also.
We do have somewhat of an existing relationship too with the U of C and the U of A, and maybe there's all kinds of things we can. Exactly.
Councillor Hoekstra.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So just to clarify a few questions we had a presentation that you're well aware of last week at our committee meeting, and I was looking at those numbers and, oh shoot, now they went away. But we were under the understanding I was under the understanding that the full 2 million was going to this project now, but you've clarified now it's 1.5 from ME Global, and then the 500 will go to operations, is that correct? Dispersed over, okay, just so that.
Right, so ME Global wanted to ensure the longevity and upkeep and of the park, and so that was one way to do it, I guess, was to put aside some of the money for the long term.
Which is fair. I think that there's wisdom in that. Then the other thing that I had a question about is that when the park first came to be, the city loaned you money. Is that a possible model that you would consider, or you are definitely looking for a straight out grant, I'm guessing, but have you thought about what if it was a loan again?
Well, I can start. So really, I think the business plan, with the forecasted revenues and doesn't give much room for paying off loans. And so we are a not-for-profit organization, and our expenses are minimum. And I think I guess I'm not speaking for the board, but I would think that we'll have to live within our means, and so whatever we get for grants or support, we'll do the very best we can.
I guess we're in a position where we would consider any options, considering some of the constraints you have too, and if it's easier for the city to say that we can, and I have no idea, okay, I'm just talking out of the hole in the middle of my face. If you said we could give you X amount of dollars more per year, but not something up front, We do have a reserve, and as long as there was a guarantee and agreement of that, that would be a way we could accommodate it, but, and to have a loan for us we did a lot of work and a lot of fundraising for all the volunteers to pay back the last loan, which we paid back on time or earlier, and it was difficult for us. We're not set up for that. We're our volunteers.
But just to add to what Darren said, so there's different ways you can do it. You know, if there was that $500,000 that any global is set aside for long term, you know, perhaps that could be accessed for construction if there was other funding, you know, committed for longer. Exactly. So lots of different options.
Creativity.
Councillor Hibbs?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So I too would echo that I'm obviously very interested in this project. Definitely a sporting family, and you know, and I support, you know, active youth and getting kids and youth active early so that, you know, continues through their lifetime, and they appreciate the value of that lifestyle. I guess I have a question about the corporate donation in particular. Is that contingent on anything? You've got a very ambitious timeline here, and I'm just wondering, you know, what is their timeline expectation associated with the donation?
So I'll preamble with, I have my Lacombe Athletic Park Association hat on. I do work for ME Global, but I don't speak for ME Global on the board. But I can say that, you know, the agreement that was entered into with the Lacombe Athletic Park Association was to support, you know, the expansion of the field house and the creation of a track. The payments, you know, the $2 million in donations, by this spring there'll be $1 million donated, and then there's another $500,000 next spring, and $500,000 a year from then, I believe. Yes. And so there's no time frame, I guess, you know, attached to that agreement. Again, ME Global, I'll quote the announcement that was made that you were there for. I'll quote our Vice President, who, you know, ME Global is very excited to be part of this for all the reasons that everybody said in this room. You know, the development of sports for the kids, the benefit to the community, and so, you know, it's just very exciting. And ME Global is still very excited to be part of this. And the relationship that we've had with the Lacombe Athletic Park Association, you know, for the first 10 years, I'll say, I think the ME Global was confident that this is a long-term benefit to the community, and we're just excited to be part of it. So, did that sort of answer your question, or?
Yes, thank you. And then I just have one, just more follow-up. So, you know, we've been talking about the benefit to the community. You've got, you know, the potential of hosting a number of meets, those sort of things, you know, anything from, you know, relatively small to regional to provincial. Meets typically, are they a single day type thing, or when you get it to the larger, like, provincials, or are you talking like a whole weekend? Like, can you just sort of, just so we can get a better idea of what the actual impact is when you're having people come to the park?
So larger, or you know, your elementary school and stuff like that, that's one day, one meet. But when we're looking at larger high school meets, we're looking at you're looking at 2-day minimum, possibly 3-day. Of course, depending on if you're just focusing on like the midget or youth. But if you're starting to go up to junior age and things like that, you can start to look over a few more days.
And Alberta Summer Games is 2 weeks at 4 days now.
Yep.
So every Alberta Summer Games goes over 8 days over a 2-week period as well. So that's all the other options. So there'll be a chance for some good events too.
Any other questions from council? Councillor Jacobson, did you have a question?
Well, no, I did have a couple, but they were all asked by my fellow councillors, so that's fine. I get really excited about this kind of stuff because I love seeing complex projects come to life, and I know how difficult it is to run a volunteer board, and to see what you guys do I think is a real asset. But I have to say I'm not nearly as behind this project as I was when I saw you have a rider's scarf. So, I'll have to consider that.
We try.
Councillor Hoekstra?
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Just one last question. I guess I'm all about the details tonight. My understanding with the information we received before is there would be a different amount asked for from the county versus the city. Your presentation is asking for the same amount from the city and the county. Do you have confidence in that you will receive the similar support from both, or are we, which, anyhow?
One of the reasons that we're doing this in advance, speaking with all the parts, including the school board, as we attempt to ask them for money, is that we want to overcome that. I know that a lot of the work and donation that we may get from the county will have to do with groundwork. And they may say that and I'm just throwing out numbers here. They may say, I think somewhere in our estimates it says groundwork's about $700,000. And they may say, we can provide that to you, $700,000. But then if we get grants for 1.4, well, all of a sudden that's at the 2 million. I don't know, and I don't speak for the county or for us, but I would think that they would have a tough time saying we'll give $700,000 if the city isn't giving anything. So that's part of the reason that we're doing this, communicating with everyone. And in our letter it does say, once we get the grants, we can decide as a group who gives the cash, who gives working capital, who gets it. Maybe you'll say we want to give you the money, but we don't want to give you an annual amount. You can keep the grant for that. Like that's why we want to have a conversation. What's the best way to do this for all the stakeholders?
Okay, thank you very much. We're up against the clock here a little bit, so we'll take all this into consideration and hopefully continue to work with our administration for your grant applications, and we wish you all the success in that. And I think there's a lot of support on council for this project in one way or another, and certainly would be unable to commit tonight to any of those numbers, but with hopefully with our support you're able to succeed in getting those grants and fundraising done. And don't forget to come see Rotary for something like that. Okay, thank you very much, and we'll move on to our public hearings now. And I think we'll declare them open at 5:37, the public hearing for Bylaw 400.20, Land Use Bylaw Amendments, Wolf's Brook. I declare the statutory public hearing for Bylaw 400.20 open, and that this hearing is held pursuant to Section 7, 8, 230, 606, and 296 of the MGA 2000 as amended, and request the legislative coordinator to confirm the purpose of the public hearing, that the statutory public hearing notice was advertised in the local newspaper, and that any written submissions received and not included in the public hearing agenda package are read into record.
Deputy Mayor Gullickson, Council, the purpose of the public hearing is to allow the general public to provide input to the proposed bylaw 400.20 to amend the land use bylaw number 400 by adding Welt Brook to the flood hazard area regulations overlay and amending the information in regards to Wolf Creek in the flood hazard area regulations overlay in accordance with section 640 of the MGA. given first reading at the January 14th council meeting. Per section 606 of the MGA, requirements for advertising, public hearing notice as shown was advertised in the Macomb Express Thursday, January 31st, 2019 and Thursday, February 7th, 2019. Deputy Mayor Gullickson and Council, one written submission was received and will now be read into the record. January 23rd, 2019, from the Macomb County. Notice on public hearing to amend the flood hazard area regulations overlay in the land use bylaw 400. Thank you for providing the county an opportunity to comment on the proposed amendments to the flood hazard area regulations overlay. The county has no issues with the proposed amendments. Yours truly, Anita O'Driscoll, Senior Planner.
Thank you for that. All persons giving oral presentations are to clearly state their name, and presentations are to be brief and to the point. At this time, I'll call upon Development Officer, or Manager Bonnet, to present on behalf of the city.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The purpose of the report is to provide information for second and third reading, which includes amendments to the land use bylaw with respect to amending the flood hazard regulations overlay. First reading for this bylaw was January 14th. The land use bylaw contains flood hazard area regulations overlay, and that sets the standard for land that is located in the flood hazard area. The areas are comprised of floodway and flood fringe. Floodway is the portion of the flood area where the water flows the deepest and fastest. Limited development is allowed within the floodway, and it's normally identified as environmental reserve. The flood fringe is generally a slower flood area, but it still represents risk that need to be mitigated. The land use bylaw does allow for development within these areas. However, certain regulations must be followed. And currently, the flood hazard overlay does provide for the flood area of Wolf Creek, but does not for Wellbrook. And when Council was finishing the IDP with Macomb County, the city and county chose to undertake a flood hazard mapping study for Wellbrook, and the study focused on approximately 5 kilometers of Wellbrook, which runs through the proposed development areas. The study compiled important hydrological information about the brook and established floodway and flood fringe boundaries. The city's, as I said, the city currently does identify the flood area of Wolf Creek. In accordance with Council's direction, modifications are proposed to properties located on 45th Avenue. The floodway mapping does not alter the risk of flooding to these properties and will not alter any of the province's flood hazard mapping. As indicated, the advertising took place on January 31st and February 7th, and property owners were notified. Letters were sent January 21st. Thank you.
Thank you, Manager Bonnet. Any of those in favor of the amendments wish to speak? Those opposed to the changes to the bylaw? Any person deemed to be affected who wishes to be heard? No? Any questions from council regarding that to Manager Bonnet? No? I declare the public hearing for bylaw 400.20 closed at 5:43 p.m. Okay, we'll move on to our next one. I declare the statutory public hearing for bylaw 400.19 open at 5:44, and that this hearing is held pursuant to section 7, 8, 230, 606, and 296 of the MGA 2000 as amended, and request the legislative coordinator to confirm the purpose of the public hearing, that the statutory public hearing notice was advertised in the local newspaper, and that any written submissions received and not included in the public hearing agenda package are read into record.
Deputy Mayor Gullickson and Council, the purpose of the public hearing is to allow the general public to provide input to the amending bylaw 400.19, rezone lands which are described as Lot 12 MR, Block 1, Plan 0021575 from GS Green Space District to DC2 Direct Control District 2. Lot 1, Plan 9020901 from R2 Residential Single and Semi-Detached District, DC2 Direct Control District 2. Lot 3, Plan 9320076 from C3 Transitional Commercial District to DC2 Direct Control District 2 and UT Utility District. And Lot K-1, Plan 3401 RS from I1 Light Industrial District to DC2 Direct Control District 2 and UT Utility District in accordance with Section 640 of the MGA. Given first reading at the January 14th council meeting, per Section 606 of the MGA, requirements for advertising. Public hearing notice as shown was advertised in the Lacombe Express Thursday, January 31st, 2019 and Thursday, February 7th, 2019. Deputy Mayor Gullickson, Council, one written submission was received and will now be read into record. Received from Lacombe County, January 23rd, 2019. Notice of a public hearing to rezone Lot 12 MR Block 1, Plan 0021575, Lot 1, Plan 9020901, Lot 3, Plan 9320076, and Lot K-1, Plan 3401 RS. Thank you for providing the county an opportunity to comment on the proposed amendments to the City of Lacombe Land Use Bylaw 400. The county has no issues with the proposed amendments. Yours truly, Anita O'Driscoll, Senior Planner.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All persons giving oral presentations are to clearly state their name, and presentations are to be brief and to the point, and I'll pass it on to Manager Bonnet.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The purpose of this report is for the redesignation of 4 properties in order to facilitate commercial development within the Iron Wolf Outline Plan. Council gave first reading to this bylaw January 14th. We're recommending second and third reading tonight. Lands located west of this property are these properties is I-1, to the north is C3, and to the east is residential, and to the south is agriculture. The Wolf Creek Outline Plan was adopted in 2007, and no updates have taken place since that time. The MR designations were removed or approved by Council for removal on January 14th, 2019. So the proposal is that Lot 12 MR would go from green space to be rezoned to direct control 2. Lot 1 is currently residential, and it would be rezoned to direct control 2. Lot 3 is transitional commercial to direct control and partial utility district. And Lot K1 from light industrial to direct control and utility. The properties incorporate the existing direct control 2 properties and will be redeveloped as a small commercial style development, and will include a cul-de-sac road network, a number of permitted and discretionary uses, including a medical and health services facility, restaurant, personal services, retail sales, in addition to discretionary residential uses. It was advertised January 31st and February 7th, and all landowners affected were advised or sent letters on January 21st. Thank you.
Thank you, Manager Bonnet. All those in favor of the amendment? Is anyone wishing to speak? Those opposed? No? Any person deemed to be affected who wishes to be heard? Anyone on council has any questions or concerns? No, I declare the public hearing for bylaw 400.19 closed at 5:50 p.m. So at 5:50 p.m. also, I declare the statutory public hearing for bylaw 400.20 open. Oops, that's one we did already, isn't it? I declare the statutory public hearing for bylaw 400.21 open. That this hearing is held in pursuant to section 7, 8, 230, 606, and 296 of the MGA 2000 as amended, and request the legislative coordinator to confirm the purpose of the public hearing, that the statutory public hearing notice was advertised in the local newspaper, and that any written submissions received and are not included in the public hearing agenda package are read into record.
Deputy Mayor Gullickson and Council, the purpose of the public hearing is to allow the general public to provide input to the amending bylaw 400.21 to rezone lands which are described as closed portion of road plan 6716K.S.2 C4 Highway Commercial District in accordance with section 640 of the MGA, given first reading at the January 14th council meeting. Per section 606 of the MGA, requirements for advertising, public hearing notice as shown was advertised in the Lacombe Express Thursday, January 31st, 2019 and Thursday, February 7th, 2019. Deputy Mayor Gullickson and Council, no written submissions were received.
Thank you very much. All persons giving oral presentations are to clearly state their name, and presentations are to be brief and to the point. I'll turn it over to Manager Bonnet.
Okay, bylaw 400.21 is for the redesignation of closed portion of 50th Avenue or Highway 12. Road plan 6716 to Highway Commercial in order to facilitate development of the land. First reading of this bylaw was January 14, 2019. We're recommending second and third reading to this bylaw. The land is located directly north of the former Pro Metal site and east of 45th Street. The undeveloped road allowance or road plan was closed by bylaw during the December 10th meeting of council. The adjacent landowner intends to consolidate these lands. Council authorized the sale of the closed portion of the road at fair market value on August 13th. The property is surrounded by existing commercial and industrial uses and is located north and west of Lacombe Market Square, Wolf Creek Crossing development. The proposed zoning aligns with the Southeast Area Structure Plan. Advertising again was on January 31st and February 7th. Again, notices to adjacent landowners were sent out January 21st. Thank you.
Thank you, Manager Bonnet. Those in favor wishing to speak of the amendment to this bylaw? Those opposed to the changes? Any persons deemed to be affected who wish to be heard? Anyone on council wish to speak? No? I declare the public hearing for bylaw 400.21 closed at 5:54 p.m. Okay, I think we'll go back to section 4, council mailbox. Everybody's had a chance to review that information. Councillor Connex.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Gullickson. The letter that came from City of Black Falls about Fog Dog Energy, is there a way, or actually obviously we've been invited to attend this if we'd like, but is there a way that we could have them come talk to us as well, or no?
I imagine they would be happy to attend. We haven't asked them to do so. The mayor and I had planned to attend the town of Black Falls to have a look and then probably see if it's something we would want to hear more about and possibly have them bring, but not here. But so they could invite them here instead.
Okay, no, that's fair. Like I haven't even looked at my calendar to see, because I'd be interested in hearing what they're all about. And just a matter of, I'm sure everyone else picked on this, but there's only like one page of the library board minutes. I don't know what happened to page 2 and 3, but yeah.
We can make sure that those are included in the next mailbox. I apologize for that.
Councillor Hoekstra.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I was just curious if there could just be a small comment about why we aren't part of the North Red Deer, or the Red Deer River Municipal User Group. Were we at one point part of that? And is there any history around that request that we rejoin? When I look at the rather extensive list of members, I was curious why we weren't on it.
So in the past, the city was only a partial user of the Red Deer River watershed. Potable water was drawn from there through the regional water line but returned to the Battle River watershed. So I think that the reason they're sort of reaching out now is now that we have converted to regional sewer, we are a sort of a full-fledged user of the watershed, I guess. In the past, there hasn't been participation just because of the cost versus the actual tangible outcomes haven't always lined up for us.
Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So I guess my question with this specific letter, invitation, what do you want to call it? So it is elected officials that they're looking for. Is there also administration that attends these or is involved in these?
It is a mix. I would say that the larger members are typically a mix involving both elected officials and a member of administration. So City of Red Deer, for sure, would be sending someone all the time. Somewhere like Town of Sylvan Lake may send an administrative person as well, I'm referring to. But the smaller communities, like Village of Donalda, would be an elected official only. I would say if the City of Macomb were to join, the expectation would be that we would be sending an administrative person as well as an elected official.
Councillor Hibbs.
So just to follow up on that invitation then, is that something that we're going to discuss at a later date or like what's the follow-up with this? And then I have some more questions, but with this one, what is the next step?
It's not currently in your budget to participate. It's certainly something we could bring back to your spring amendments for the budget, and you could join this year. Could be be something you join next year, or you could give us direction right here to include this in the upcoming spring amendments, and we'd be happy to forward that to them as well, whatever you see fit.
So I'm not prepared to give that direction. However, I would suggest that perhaps when we're looking at all of our boards and commissions and committees that we belong to, that this would be considered as a possibility, but certainly no direction that we should continue on with it. I do have another question backing up to the invitation from the IODE. Has that invitation been accepted?
That invitation has been accepted by the mayor. He will be participating on our behalf, and I think bringing greetings from the city. So certainly that one we have responded to.
I just have a question regarding the cost of being part of the Red Deer River Water Service Commission. It's based on population, is that correct?
I just want to make sure the Red Deer River Water Services Commission is our potable water source. I think you were referring to the Red Deer Municipal Users Group. And so it is based on population, that's correct, and I don't actually have that number for me. I don't think it's very significant. I would say that participation is likely below $5,000 per year, but I don't have that exact number here today. I apologize.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah, that's really there's some cost there.
Anybody wish to make a motion that we accept this as information? Councillor Connex?
I can make that motion.
Thank you. All those in favor? Okay, we will move on then to our responsible pet ownership bylaw. Director Piche.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Gullickson. Before Council tonight is Bylaw 469, Responsible Pet Ownership Bylaw. It is being recommended that the first and second reading of this bylaw is presented to ensure that the bylaw is able to have discussion and or debate this evening. The genesis of this bylaw came about during the discussion surrounding the nuisance bylaw and nuisance cats requiring some regulations. It only made sense at that time to amalgamate all bylaws pertaining to animals into one bylaw. We looked at the process of how we license dogs and reviewed the steps and purposes of all the information that we gather. This would help us in the approach that we would take as if we were to license cats. During this review, we realized that the main reason we gather this information is to ensure that we're able to contact the owner in the event that their animal is lost or gets out of their yard. As shown in the memo, there's a chart of the 2018 statistics of animals that were impounded. Nearly 80% of dogs are returned to their owners, and 6 were only put up for adoption, and this is due to the fact that they are licensed and registered with the city. Cats were drastically different. There's only 2 out of 52 cats that were returned to their owners, which is only 4%, and 96% of the cats that were impounded were readopted to different homes. The licensing structure that is being proposed is to make it reasonable and not cost prohibitive to register an animal with the city. Currently, every year, our staff will mail out invoices to dog owners and will spend considerable amounts of time of trying to track down the unpaid licenses. Where all that is needed is from the owners is their current address, their contact information of the owners, and to know if the animals are altered and if the animal has some form of identification, such as a tattoo or a microchip. This information will allow the animal to be returned home safely if they're found outside of the owner's property and that they have no collar on. It is for this reason that we are proposing a lifetime license for each dog and cat. Moving to lifetime licenses will result in lower license renewal revenues for the city but the robustness of this bylaw could result in higher fines for people who are not responsible pet owners. The bylaw is focused on compliance of responsible pet ownership rather than revenue generation. Still, each year there will be new puppies and new kittens that will be adopted into their families here in Lacombe, and we conservatively estimate about 100 new dogs and 100 new cats each year, which could result in approximately $6,000 in revenue. Additionally, there should be some savings when it comes to cats being registered. It is anticipated that the impound fees should go down. Last year, there was about $5,800 in impound fees and $4,600 in call-out fees by our animal shelter. And then going back to the initial reason that we started to look at this bylaw, the bylaw provides some discretion when it comes to nuisance animals. If an animal is declared a nuisance animal, it will result in a yearly fee until that animal is no longer a nuisance after 2 consecutive years of good behavior. After that, the lifetime license will still be in effect. One area that we did not address in the past bylaw is the vicious animals component. This bylaw does take into account any actions that happens if an animal is vicious. There is a provincial act that determines what constitutes a vicious animal. The other areas of the bylaw, the livestock and urban hens, have maintained the same wording as what was in their previous bylaws. But now it'll allow a resident to look at one bylaw for all animals in the city. As mentioned before, administration is looking for first and second reading tonight and to allow for any discussion or debate on this bylaw. At this time, I'm happy to take any questions.
So as you know, we can't have any questions or discussion until after. So we do need to have somebody make a motion regarding first reading. Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would be more than happy to move first reading of this bylaw.
All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay, so we can move on to second reading of this bylaw and then have some discussion. Anyone wish to make the motion for second reading? Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Where's the proper wording here? Sorry. The council approves second reading of bylaw 469, responsible pet ownership bylaw.
Thank you for that. All in favor?
Oh. We can.
Any questions or concerns regarding this bylaw? Councillor Connex.
Because yes, I do have some questions and concerns, so thank you, Deputy Mayor Gullickson. So I took my little yellow highlighter through here, and I've got some questions. First question I have is to definitions 3.42, and it talks about owner. It defines what an owner is. Owner means any natural person or body corporate who is the licensed owner of the animal, has the legal title to the animal, has possession or custody of the animal, either temporary or permanently, or harbors the animal. Just trying to figure out what you're going for here, because later on it talks about how if there's an animal in distress, you're obligated to help that animal. So my concern is, I see a cat that's been hit by a car, I take this cat into my house, bylaw shows up and says, well, you're harboring that animal, you're now the owner, and you now pay this fine. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't, I guess I'm just trying to figure that one out.
A little bit more clarification.
Yeah, if you could on that definition. To me, it doesn't quite make sense there.
CEO Gowdy.
Could I suggest that the definition would be updated to harbors the owner, or sorry, harbors the animal for a period of time, or harbors the animal on an ongoing basis, with a regular basis? Would that
Yeah, just something needs to be, because like I say, I don't want to, a dog gets by a car, I don't want to bring the dog in my house, it's not tagged, and I don't want bylaw showing up when I phone them and saying, hey, that's your dog. No, it's not. Well, you have it. Well, no, why? Something needs to be clarified there. I have a few other things, if I may continue.
Yes, please.
Thank you, sorry, I've got a bunch. 3.57, threatening behavior. It defines what threatening behavior is, and then it talks about unless the dog is a working stock dog and is engaged in the performance of such work. Will we actually have working stock dogs in city limits?
Probably not, yeah.
I mean, I'm even thinking about the goats, when the goat guys bring their goats in. I don't know if they have dogs to control them. Maybe they do.
Yeah.
Okay, that just occurred to me, so never mind, scratch that one.
Okay.
No, that one's 4.11. Every owner shall ensure that the license tag is securely fastened to a choke chain, collar, or harness that must be worn by the dog or cat at all times. Now, I know you've lifted this right out of the dog bylaw.
Yes.
There's lots of things you've just lifted out and kind of thrown cat in there. I couldn't get the collar on my cat if I wanted to. That one I don't know about entirely. I get it for a dog. Most cats I see don't have any sort of collar. I don't know if you're going to get it anyways. So I don't know if that needs to be changed, or maybe it needs to stay that way. I don't know how else you're going to get this tag on this animal.
And you could be right there. That is one of the areas why we're asking for tattooing or microchipping, is that there is some form of identification. Specifically, we're thinking of the cats when it comes to that.
Yeah.
So maybe we could reword that as well.
Yeah, maybe just say that there is no ability to get a collar on this animal, that the animal then must be tattooed or microchipped, maybe. I don't know. 5.10, again, this one you lifted right out of the dog bylaw, where a female dog or cat in heat is combined and housed in the residence of its owner. Such dog or cat should be permitted outside. Well, a cat in heat doesn't need to go outside. They have their litter box inside. They're never going to go outside, period.
Yeah.
Or they shouldn't. Again, I get it for the dog, but a cat is going to be inside all the time anyways.
Depends, that's all the time.
Well, it's supposed to be.
Well, that's why the part of the bylaw's been created.
But the point being that a cat in heat doesn't need to go outside to do its business because its litter box is inside all the time. They're going to go in, you're not going to send it out. In fact, all the boy cats in the neighborhood would love it if you sent a cat out in heat. 5.17, I guess this has always been in there, but I see this all the time, where a person will walk their dog to Rexall, tie their dog up outside and go in. I guess I see the reason why. I'm just wondering, that's probably not enforced very much, I'm guessing, but the whole vicious animal thing I don't get.
Okay.
Maybe it's just me, but if you have a vicious animal, they shouldn't they just, I know it talks about being put down, but I mean, we're still making provisions, I don't know.
Is a vicious animal, is that not provincial legislation? Is that where it came from?
It is. Yeah, yes, vicious animals are, when there is an attack by a dog, it does go to court. And it is a justice that actually determines what happens with that dog. It is actually out of our control at that time.
Thank you. And the last thing I had, so we talk about this as an all-encompassing bylaws, so we have sections on cats, dogs, urban hens, but we really don't have a section that specifically talks about bees. Like right now, bees aren't being licensed. I don't know if we're going to do that or not. I know in 15.2 it talks about a bylaw officer may seize and impound any livestock, wild animals, poultry, or bees within the city if the livestock, wild animals, poultry, or bees are being kept without being licensed or by written permission of the CAO. So I'm understanding that bees right now fall under written permission of the CAO, but maybe there should be a little paragraph that specifically talks about bees. And then if you want bees, you need to get written permission by the CAO, because that's the only reference you make to it here. And like I say, I think you need just a little, tiny little paragraph, because there's not much to bees right now, that says that you don't need a license. However, you do need written permission from the CAO. And I think that's, oh no, I had something about fines yet too. but I'll let someone else have a crack.
Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I guess my first comment is just about the name of the bylaw. I would prefer that it was, now where is the name? Responsible pet ownership. I would rather that it was just responsible animal ownership, because bees, if they are going to be partly under here, are not pets. Chickens, urban hens, I don't think are pets. Some people might want to argue that point, but I would suggest a change a name to the bylaw. Then I had just a comment about the vicious animal, part 2, I did read it, but 8.5 in particular, that first statement does not make sense to me at all. A justice, after convicting an owner of an offense under this bylaw, may, in addition to the penalties provided in this bylaw, and if the justice considers the offense sufficiently serious, basically it should go from a justice, the city may seek the following. There's something missing in that statement. And Councillor Connex covered a lot of the good stuff.
Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So I'm really quite happy with this bylaw. I'm quite excited about it. I'm pretty sure everybody can quite tell that. So very good job. I definitely would agree with most of what was brought up here, certainly about the pet ownership, because yeah, it really should be probably animals. I did have a question about the fees, not specifically the fees themselves, but just in your presentation you talked a little bit about the collection of those fees, and then also some of the sort of related expenses that we have sort of in this area. Could you just sort of go through that again a little bit? Just, in sort of, there's a move towards when you're collecting fees that they're collected for a purpose, so that you can kind of point to why we're collecting them. Like, for example, utilities, right? We collect a certain rate, and that's to pay, what it actually costs us, right? So if you could just sort of go through that, those two sides again, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
For sure. When we're collecting our fees, right now we're just collecting a yearly fee. It's more so to keep track of what owners are registering their animals. Most of the funds just go into general revenue, is my understanding, and because it's our front office staff that does do all of the work, it's just part of their duties in that sense. When we really looked at this, we really looked at the type of information that we gather, and a lot of it is really just information so that we mainly get the animals back to their owners. The fees that we pay to the animal shelters, that is incurred entirely by the city. If we cannot find an owner of an animal, that isn't recoverable at all, and we will pay $100 per animal for each one that is impounded until the 3 days is over for their waiting time before that they can be put up for adoption again. The other fees that we look at is just basically the costs of the call-out fee. So when it's evenings or weekends and such, that again is just incurred 100% by the city for the animal shelters in that sense. So, does that answer the question?
I think so. I guess when we're sort of communicating this out to the public, whatever we decide in the end here, I think that it's important to sort of draw that connection between, now that we're doing annual fees, should we go down that route? They might be a little bit higher, but they're also done once, right? Yeah. But it would be good to see the correlation between bringing those fees in and then the related costs that there are for animals, because I'm not sure that maybe people understand that there's, just another flip side, because I think perhaps sometimes that gets lost, and then this could just be looked as a cash grab. Does that make sense? So I think that's really important to make that connection.
Well, that was one of the reasons that we wanted to have such a low cost for a lifetime license. We didn't want it to be a cash grab. We want it to be where it's almost like an insurance for registration, that when people register their animals, all we're doing, we're just keeping track in the event that one of our bylaw officers do have a time where they have to pick them up or find them, and somebody else picks them up and returns them to us. There's a way of getting it back to the owner then at that point. The difference between being altered and identifiable, like where there's a microchip or a tattoo, that helps us considerably. So to be deemed as a responsible pet owner, to have it fully altered and to have some sort of tattoo or identification, that's where the $15 fee comes into place. If it's one or the other, we're looking at $75 per animal. And then if they don't want to alter their animal, or they don't want to have some sort of identification, then we are looking at a $150 lifetime licensing.
CEO God, if you have something? No?
Councillor Hibbs?
Okay, so then a couple more questions to do with the fees, notwithstanding the amounts. So of course, should we go ahead with this? This is a transition from our existing program to this program. So this works great when you're registering, say, new animals. But if you have existing, either dogs that are already registered, or you have, a cat that's maybe, 5, 6, 10 years into its life, people are quite clearly going to kind of balk at that. Like they're going to say, well, I don't want to pay that rate now that my cat is, kind of right. And so I'm just wondering how we kind of anticipate handling that. And then the other question I have, which I haven't gotten, but I'm sure I'm going to get, is, for example, say that you just brought little Fido home. Yes, he's 6 months old. You want to do the responsible thing and go get the license just in case he happens to get out, but you're not quite ready maybe to fix him. Maybe you got some future plans, but maybe eventually the idea is that he's going to get altered. Is there any consideration for like a rebate? Like if somebody should bring in their documents and say, no, look now, Fido is altered. Yeah.
We were talking about that regarding the age of registering. We did come up with 6 months, as that's sort of a standard for having some sort of alteration done. We did talk about going nine months to even a year at one point. That gets a little long at that in that sense. But I believe we have in here that there is no refunds on any fees at that point.
CEO Gowdy?
I think that we did talk about that very scenario. I think if you want to go that route, it would be better to say animals don't have to be registered until a year of age, say, rather than saying we'll offer a rebate, because you get people coming back after 3 years and maybe the animals had a litter of puppies or 2 already and they're fixing it, and then they want a rebate. I think we have made the fees low enough that that I don't think the barrier to compliance will be so high that we won't see a lot of compliance. I would recommend going to the 1 year threshold rather than a rebate system if you wanted to address that situation.
The one question I have regarding this is that the unaltered fees, there's not a lot at $75 lifetime. Is that really an incentive to have them altered? I mean, there's not a lot of money difference.
There isn't. It really is. It comes down to that responsible pet ownership. If they really want a low fee of the $15, most people will alter their animals. There is going to be the majority, or the few animal owners who will want to breed their dogs or their cats or something, like if they have a specialty animal. You're right. It doesn't. It's not a cost or a revenue generating type bylaw. This is more to just ensure and enhance the fact that we want to encourage responsible pet ownership.
Yeah, I was just thinking of a little more incentive to do it. But no, I totally agree with you, and I really like the fee schedule. I know there's some people out there that are pretty excited about this already, that have already registered their animals and would like to see this happen right away, and then they'll be done. And if we can use the existing registration, that would be great. Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This is to Director Pichet. In the event that a animal is not microchipped, not tattooed, but in the possession of classic kennels, should we not take advantage of that opportunity that they may have the expertise to then microchip or tattoo that animal? Because on a lot of situations, it's the repeat offenders that are not responsible for their animals, so then we can therefore then get that animal back to the original owner and so forth. Because that not be more proactive, that if in the event to bring that scenario that animal is at classic kennels, that is the place and time to get that animal identified?
So one of the things that when an animal is taken to classic kennels and they are able to find the owner, they ensure that there is a license on that animal at this present time. We could try and put in some other provisions if we wanted to talk to them about that, but we have also talked to the vets in the area about different means of getting bulk microchipping done. We're looking at different programs where we can maybe do a day of identification or something like that. We've had some discussions with veterinarians on that as well already.
Councillor Connex?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Gullickson. I've just got a few questions further to the fees. So just okay, maybe this was asked and answered and I missed it, but so if you have an altered dog, but it's not microchipped or tattooed, but has the tag on its collar, I have to pay $75 and not $15? Like, what if the tag's on the collar, why couldn't I pay $15? It's always on the collar.
It's in the event that they actually get out of their collar. We have that, like the 6 dogs, or some of the 6 dogs that were readopted out from last year was because they weren't wearing a collar. We don't know who the owner was. We've had animals where they do get out of their collar. We had one lady who did have her dog fully licensed. Luckily, she was looking for her dog and we were able to return it back to her, but she did have to go through classic kennels and she didn't have the collar on the dog, or they didn't, it got out of the collar, one or two. So.
Oh, okay. And then just to the penalties, fines. So are the fines cumulative? Like, so my dog is running at large, it runs at large in a park, it chases a car and defecates. Am I looking at $600 or am I looking at $100? How does that work?
It would be a cumulative, yeah.
It is a cumulative.
Yeah.
Okay. In the old bylaw, you got in the fines here, allow dog or cat to bark, howl, yowl excessively, $100 fine. In the old bylaw, it talked about how it had to be barking for 5 minutes. The new one doesn't speak to that at all.
No.
So we've just kind of taken that out. Like, I mean, I get there were challenges because bylaw would have to come and start the time, and after 3 minutes the dog stops and then starts again. He has to restart the clock.
Yeah, and what it is, when we've had incidences where there have been dogs barking for long periods of time, and if we had to wait the 5 minutes and then restart, and we've gone to more of a log-based system with various residents. If they're having a neighbor's dog barking a lot, we've been asking them to actually record like times that the dog's barking. Is it for longer periods of time? Is it for hours on end? Is it for minutes? Is it just at one time of the day? And then this way we can determine whether it's a nuisance animal or not.
But can I assume though that if bylaw were called to that situation, that they would also time it or take some, because it's going to be he said, she said kind of a thing where oh, my dog hasn't barked at all. Yeah, it's been barking for the last bloody half an hour, you know, like.
Yeah. No, absolutely. If bylaw is called there, they're going to be there to observe and watch and see what's going on. But unfortunately, they can't be there all the time. And we do ask the residents to make logs as to when it is. And they will take that and they will certify the logs for them.
Okay, thank you. The last one I have is failing to obtain a license for a licensable dog or cat. I'm assuming, though, that's when the cat is caught in a classic kennels. It's not. I mean, it's a dumb question, but I want to ask it. Nobody's going to go around and knock on every door and say, is your cat licensed?
No, we don't have time for that.
I didn't think so, but I just want
Only when we know where there's a cat.
sorry.
Anyone, oh.
Just for the, my cat is 15 years old. It talks about, it is altered, but I don't have proof of that anymore.
Your vet, what?
I doubt it. I don't even know when the last time she went to a vet. So again, that's another one of those gray areas, right? If I go get a license, I know it's altered, she's altered, but I don't have proof of that anymore. I can get it. You may run into that too. So, and it's funny you say dementia cat. She's suffering from dementia because she howls all the time. Anyways.
Noise bylaw problem now. But speaking of that, is there going to be some, and I would hope that our staff would be able to do this, for example, in this case, 15 years old, come in, there's no paperwork, the cat was altered 15 years ago. I would hope that we would have some flexibility.
I will not commit to some sort of flexibility, but I think what we could do is we have a commissioner of oaths on staff, and if we, in the situation that you're describing, I think we would be able to go through a process to assure ourselves that it was altered without onerous responsibility on you.
And that's flexibility. There you go.
There's a measure.
It is, exactly. Any other, Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I was just going to make second reading. I assume we can. Somebody already made second reading or not?
It's already
Already done? Okay, my apologies. I wasn't sure if it was.
And were we talking about dementia earlier?
I'm not doing that one, didn't I?
Director Piche, I'd just like to say that I think you did a lot of great work here, and it was excellent, and then certainly the visits in your office were interesting, if nothing else. And I'm sure everybody's aware of where all this came from. It wasn't something that we created. We stole it from other places, right? Which is a great idea, I think. And I think the majority of it is excellent, and I hope we can get this into law very quickly.
Just in our defense, I would say we did research a lot of other animal control bylaws and pet licensing bylaws. I would say we are not aware of a single one that is as comprehensive and addresses all of the issues in one bylaw. So I think there was a lot of referring to other bylaws, but I think we've got something new here that reflects our direction of trying to minimize the amount of times that we have to force residents to come into the city to get an annual license, whether it's for this. We're also looking at some of our other licensing processes. So I do think it benefits from other bylaws, but it was something newly created in many portions.
Thank you for that clarification. I think the work here was great. I think the administration did an excellent job on this from what I can see, and it's something that I know in discussions with the public, there's a lot of people can't wait for this to happen. For the life, especially the dog owners are excited, lifetime licensing and one-stop shopping kind of thing. So thank you very much for all your hard work. Yeah, and as far as taking other information, that's just a smart thing to do for sure. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I just had a question about process now. The suggestions we made tonight, now do they go back and you'll tweak it and then, but then it's right away third reading, so it's kind of, but that is how it works, okay. Maybe that's how it always works, but it just seems odd tonight to do it. Sorry?
Third reading's not.
No, I understand that.
So often what we do actually is have the first reading and then second and third in one, and so we thought that only actually gives one opportunity to discuss it. And so this way you have the additional, you'll see a complete copy that reflects all of these comments on the 25th. And of course you can delay it from there if you want, if there's more changes you want, or it can be adopted at that meeting.
Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Also, another way to do it, although we're not going to, because I think that the changes are so comprehensive here, is you can just go ahead and move second reading on an amended bylaw, I would imagine. But because we've done so many changes, it would make it more clean just to have it come back as a sort of newish bylaw. For timing for third reading, I know we haven't even done second yet, but for timing, what is the anticipation of administration to bring that back for third?
It is anticipated to come back on February 25th.
And CEO Gavi, when would that when would come into effect then, if we voted on the 25th?
So I think that is something we should talk about on the 25th. I heard, for example, you had mentioned tonight that perhaps the existing information from dog owners who have already registered their pet with our annual fee of $23 would be sort of like just transferred into a lifetime, for example. We haven't actually looked into that, have we?
We talked a little bit about how cats being registered would have a bit of a education process and having some rollout there. Maybe we could look at a June 1st or something like that, go forward for them, or we could even look at January, depending on how soon you guys want to register cats. But I think we should have some education process in there. But it could be effective immediately too, and people can just start registering. It's if they're so wishing to.
So we will have a recommendation for you at the 25th on when we think it should start and what a suitable education component and then an enforcement strategy, because I think probably what we would do is start, look for some compliance early on, and then start enforcement at a later date.
First of next year.
Yeah. So we'll have a recommendation at the next meeting.
So we need to move in second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of giving a second reading?
Unanimous.
Good, you got your work cut out for you again? Yeah.
That's okay.
Okay, we'll move on to bylaw 400.20, land use bylaw amendments for second and third reading. And Director Thompson.
Sure, thank you, Acting Mayor Gullickson, Deputy Mayor Gullickson. So the proposed bylaw amendments before Council tonight received first reading on January 14th. They add a flood hazard overlay, a floodway, and a flood fringe to what's known as the Welt Brooks, so on the west area, as well as make some amendments to the Wolf Creek flood hazard overlay within town, as proposed in the bylaw and included in Council's package. So if there's any questions regarding the bylaw amendments, I'm happy to answer them tonight.
Councillor Hibbs.
Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I don't really have any questions, as we could see with the great interest in this from the public, that I think that it's just a good bylaw. It's good to have these be updated, so that I would therefore move that Council give second reading to bylaw 400.20 as presented.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Councillor Jacobson?
Sure, and I move we give third reading of bylaw 400.2 as presented.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Connick?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Gullickson. So my only question is to attachment M, and I know that's the major area that we had to tweak a little bit. And I just wanted to make sure, C.A. Gowdy, that to the northwest of that creek into Iron Wolf, it's been amended as well. It looks like it has, but I just wanted to be sure, because I believe in the old map, part, there's 3 of those units were in floodway.
Yep, with the proposed bylaw, there will be no floodway impact to the Iron Wolf place.
Any further questions? All those in favor? Okay, we'll move on to bylaw 400.19, and I'll pass it on to Director Thompson.
Very good, thank you. This bylaw, as Manager Bonnet had highlighted, redesignates lands in the Iron Wolf outline plan in and around the AHS and UHS building. Redesignates them primarily to DC2 districting. And first reading for this bylaw was presented to Council on January 14th, and we're proposing second and third reading tonight.
Thank you, Director Thompson. Any further discussion? I guess we need a motion. Councillor Connick?
I would so move that we give second reading of bylaw 400.21 as presented.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just a question to CEO or Director Thompson. On the top narrow part on the picture, on page 114, is that a wide enough strip to have further lots, or why would you not just sell that narrow strip to the existing lot owner of this center bit? Does that make sense?
I think it's needed for their transportation route. I think they're running a road down there. No, that is incorrect. Director Thompson's going to tell us.
It's you're referring to the strip adjacent to CP, the CP rail on the west side.
Like, why?
So the it's a part of the agreement between the previous landowner and the current landowner. It provides access to there's like a shed or a shop farther south in that property, and so when the AHS site was subdivided, that strip provides an access to that shop on the southwest corner of the property. At some point, it is the developer's intention to amalgamate that into the 2 lots which are the AHS site today. So,
alright, so it's just a kind of, why don't we just do it now than later?
Any further questions or discussion? No? All those in favor? Unanimous? Councillor Hibbs?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We need third reading now, is that correct? I just want to make sure I'm keeping up. So I will therefore move that Council give third reading to bylaw 400.21 as presented, please.
No, it's 19, I think.
Oh, sorry. Oh, it's if you read it here.
Oh?
Yes, sorry, 400.19 is what I meant, but yes, it's...
And I said it wrong too. I said 21 because that's what I read too. So.
Yeah, but yes, we're referring to 19.
Oh, it is the wrong one there. Okay. All right. Thank you. Any further discussion? No? All those in favor? CEO Godwin?
just as a point of order, I guess I want to confirm with Councillor Connex that it was your intent upon your that council give second reading of 400.21, that was actually in reference to 400.19, which was the subject of our discussion at that time.
That is correct, so maybe I should amend my, or however you want to do it.
You'll fix it. We will amend it in the minutes unless there's any objection from council.
No objection.
Okay, if that's the case, we'll move on to bylaw 400.21, redesignation of road plan to C4. Manager Bonnet isn't here, so Director Thompson, are you going to do this one?
I will.
Thank you.
And so this redesignation assigns C4 districting to previous closed road plan adjacent to the Pro Middle site. We've been in contact with the owner and offered any assistance they need in terms of getting approvals with ATCO, and so we are hopeful that is proceeding as soon as possible. But in the meantime, we are recommending the council give second and third reading to this parcel of land to zone it C4.
Thank you, Director Thompson. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I move that council give second reading to bylaw 400.21 as presented.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Councillor Connex.
And I'll be prepared to give third reading to bylaw 400.21 as presented.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to new business then at this time. All right, we have, in our new business, we have two notice of motions. Councillor Hibbs, would you like to read? Oh, sorry. Would you like to read your notice of motion to make sure that it is correct?
All right, I'll just pull a little closer so I can see it. All right, so I have a motion here that the strategic plan strategy 4.3.3b, council considers a review of the city's solid waste management model be reprioritized from medium priority to high priority, and that the target delivery time be advanced from the current target of Q2 2021 to a new target of Q4 2019. Further, that administration present the impact to the timing of the other priority strategies at the 2019 strategic plan annual review and to the 2019 operating budget at the 2019 spring operating budget adjustments. That is the motion. So do I have an opportunity then to speak to it a little? Is that?
Well, you've made the motion, and I would think you could speak to it.
Okay, sure. I just got to pull up two pieces of information here. So, all right. So I'm going to. For some reason, I had the actual page out of our strategic plan highlighted, but I can't seem to find it on here right now. But the reason I brought this motion forward is essentially, I think that this topic has come up a few times at the council table here, certainly at, I think, every public engagement that we've had. People are talking about garbage. When you're talking setting utility rates time of year, people are generally fairly upset about the cost of these things. When it's not that part, when it's just general discussions, people are interested in garbage. That is a staple thing that municipalities do, and some people are very passionate about that in this community. I'm just concerned that we're getting a little bit distracted with trying to deal with one-offs, and I really am truly of the belief that if you start tinkering with this part or start tinkering with that part, it has maybe unintended consequences. So it's better, we already have this as identified strategic priority. If it is that much of a thing that it seems to be becoming, let's just move it up in priority. So that's essentially the whole point of this motion. I definitely think that audit is going to be very useful. I think it's something that we really need to do. We need to identify, you know, what's going on with our system, where are areas that we can improve. I don't want to go through a long process of comparing our system to other systems, but I did do a little cursory research, which I have to tell you is actually really hard to find what the rates are. Like, municipalities, there are a number of municipalities in this province, they're not particularly transparent with these types of things, and I can only imagine what that's like for administration when they're trying to find out some of this information for us. So, you know, I do want to give a shout out to admin for finding out some of this info for us, because it was rather maddening, I'll be honest with you. So I generally focus just on some communities just around here, and I just looked at residential because, again, I was beginning to tear my hair out. But you know, most of these communities have either a very similar delivery process to us as far as solid waste management goes, or I would argue better. So they have more options. Like, they've also got, you know, organic, or they've also, like, they've got more. They've got more. So this is just a monthly rate. So fees. So Ponoka, for example, is $26 a month. Here in Lacombe, and that's 2019 rate. 2019 rate for us here is $31.76 a month. Blackfalds for 2019 rate is $27.18 a month. Red Deer for 2019 is $22.25 a month. And Sylvan Lake for 2019 is $25.25. So you can see that, you know, why are we so far ahead of, like, you know, why are we so much more expensive and offering either the same or not as good service? So that's why I'm saying that this really does need to be a priority. The other parts of the utility rates that we charge in that big bylaw are to do with water, wastewater, and you know, just water. And we don't have a lot of room to wiggle there, because, I mean, we've got a whole lot of brand new infrastructure that has to get paid for. You know, those are essentially fixed fees. We don't have any room to move, no room to do any real negotiating or anything. So it's solid waste that we have an opportunity to do better for our community. And whether that is, it's going to cost less, ideally, and for a better service, ideally. But we have to have that conversation, and I really do think that we need to have it as a holistic conversation, not get distracted with one-offs, and just move this up on our priority list.
Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, my apologies. I think solid waste has always been a pretty hot topic in this community, but I look at now at solid waste and as more of a opportunity of regional collaboration, and I look at the letter that was submitted to Council with the invitation to Fog Dog with the community of Blackfalds, and I've referenced to, I think Silver Lake is also having that, starting that process in itself. Sustainable energy, and I just think as far as efficiencies, I think that the whole audit, if it was to take place, should include regional collaboration with adjoining municipalities, and I don't know to what extent, what distance. We are at a cost recovery with Lacombe Regional Solid Waste Authority that I think the scope of the audit should be, yeah, it's information justified and brought forward of the difference of costs of solid waste per month per resident of whichever community. But at this time, I think there's information that we've asked for, with all due respect, as to the commercial waste, as where's the private sector, why are we losing customers, and so forth, that And from my understanding, the change with the chairman of Lacombe Regional Solid Waste Authority, I would hope that information could be brought forward so I can understand the pertinence of the audit. I'm just not convinced with the timing because I think since the previous audit of 5 or 6 years ago, whenever I hear audit, I'm thinking $50,000 or $75,000. I'm trying to justify the cost, but I think solid waste has changed in the last 5 years, and we're looking at, I don't want to take the cost of dealing with more rollouts for recycling or compost when do we have the opportunity to continue with one pickup that's more efficient than 3 different ones in the future, and to have an economical, viable way of environmental friendly dealing with our solid waste other than a landfill. So I don't think we're still at that point and ready to take upon this audit because I think there needs to be more collaboration with other municipalities, such as the Invitation of Black Falls and so forth, than pushing it up. So I think you'd be better prepared by getting the information that's been asked for commercial waste, for other sustainable options. I think doing it on a higher priority would be too soon. So that's just give me other information. Maybe see what Gowdy can address. Like, is there a benefit from the previous audit? What are we going to gain with from the previous one to now?
So I think what was scheduled, or what was anticipated in Council's strategic plan was an external audit of the solid waste system. It would take a look at our system's performance in relation to other similar comparable municipalities. That was a component that I would say was not a focus of the last audit. The last audit was focused on what could the city of Lacombe do differently rather than sort of benchmarking against other municipalities. Other than that, I did pull up the strategic plan here, and the outcome that's desired is to ensure that users of the city's solid waste management services are getting the best possible value for the service. So I think that what you're talking about, making sure that if there is a better way to handle it, that minimizes the cost and delivers a better system, whether it's additional services, as Councillor Hibbs has identified, or lower costs that we've all talked about and want to see. I think that would be the goal of the audit.
Councillor Connex.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Gullickson. I tend to agree with Councillor Ross a little bit. I think it's a little, I understand fully the need to do this. I think it's a little premature at this time because I think, again, I said this before, I think we're on the cusp of, as Councillor Ross alluded to, fog dog technologies, sustained technologies. There's a lot out there right now, and I hate to see us go through this whole process and then 2 years from now we're presented with an opportunity to do something entirely different where it's a single stream where they take everything and recycle it or whatever, such as sustained technologies. I would prefer to leave it at the present target of Q2 2021 because I think in the next few years we're going to see a lot more of these new technologies and what can be done. And I know in Quebec City there's a study tour for a facility that is as of yet not built. I don't know if Councillor Hoekstra's looked at that or not, but I know that I'm interested to go to that, and it talks about recycling food waste or something. Anyways, there's a lot out there, and so I would agree with Councillor Fogg. I think we need to stay the course and absolutely do this, but I'd like to wait until, as it's currently written in the strategic plan, for 2021.
Councillor Jacobson.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna lie to you, garbage was never high on my priority list. And not because it's not something I really think about too much. But since being elected and doing more cursory research on big areas where municipalities can save dollars, like garbage is one of the sort of low-hanging fruits of municipalities if you do any research on it. I've liked a lot of the notices of motions that have come forward for these little piecemeal ideas, and as I've said all along, I would prefer to do it in one gigantic overview. And while I certainly share the concern that doing this ahead of time would, potentially be redundant if we decided to go with some other futuristic fog dog option, we could also be in the position where that option never materializes because it turns out the technology is still a few years away and it's not viable and all that kind of stuff. And I would imagine you could certainly do the review in such a fashion that any changes that were incorporated, are going to make the system as efficient as it can possibly be right now, with an obvious exit strategy of X should futuristic opportunity come along right now. And my feeling is that this is going to be a nasty one anyway, slice it, and I prefer just to get after things right away. So I actually am in favor of doing this now and getting all this, all these discussions, whether it's mulching, whether it's more efficient pickup, whether it's everything. I'd like to get this all discussed and started right away.
CEO Gowdy?
So I guess I do want to just differentiate between two systems. There's the collection system that the municipality manages, where we're picking up garbage, and then we take it to, right now, to the Prentice transfer station, and for all intents and purposes, that's it. It's out of our hands, and they deal with it there. But they want to fluff it into garbage fluff or burn it in an incinerator. It doesn't really matter to us. That's their business. Our audit will be focused on the actual collection services and what happens within the municipality itself.
I can say one thing since we've started talking, well, becoming a councillor also, is everywhere I go now, that's all I look at is their garbage cans and try and figure out how they're dealing with their waste, which is not always a bad thing, but certainly there's a lot of variety out there. I'm personally, what I would like to see happen with our waste management system here is to ensure that, for example, on our blue boxes, that we're doing all the right things. And I'd like CanPac to come and give us a presentation and tell us what they would like. If they would like tin cans, but they don't want all this paper because they have no market, why are we putting it in there and paying 29 times or whatever the number is for recycling? And also on the commercial side, Councillor Ross's point about the commercial, to ensure that we're in fair competition, playing by the same rules, and if we're not, if we are, and they're beating us by that much, and maybe that's an area we should look at. Do we need to be in the commercial garbage pickup? So that's what I would like to see, and I'd like to see those presentations come to council, tell us what they're doing for us, and tell us how it's working, and even on our green bins, which I brought forward before, that I think is separate from our actual garbage, but that's another story. I'd like to see that brought forward to say, okay, this is what we're going to do with this, and whether we have a new location that we take this waste to or the old location, let's have them come to us and tell us what they're doing for our dollars. And that's what I would like to see from this audit, and I don't think we need to do a major one just yet. I think we could start the process and find out where our value is, and I would like to see it stepped up, like Councillor Hibbs. I'd like to see it done sooner so that we're in a position of getting best value for our dollars, and that's my biggest concern. Councillor Connex.
Thank you, David Erickson. I just want to make one comment to CEO Gowdy's comments from, our concern is the collection of said garbage, and then we take it to Prentice, and what they do with it is their business. However, I would argue that if a new technology came along that we wanted to get on board, that would in fact impact our collection. Like Sustain Technologies, for example, they want it all. So that indeed would impact, CanPac would be out of the picture, things like that. So that's my point, is that we could do all this work, decide on something, and then it can completely change a year later. And yes, Councillor Jacobs has said that maybe these technologies are further than 2 years out, or 5 or 10. True. Although I would argue that they're not that far out. I think there's been a lot of work, a lot of these things are being done already in Europe. You know, North America is way behind. And I would argue that a lot of these things are already being done efficiently and way better in Europe and done for many, many years. And North America is just, of course, where the mindset, we've got billions of acres of land, we'll just dig a big pit and dump it in there, covered with dirt. So that's always been our lazy way out. But I would argue that these technologies are around, they've been proven, they've been used effectively overseas. And, you know, we're really, really close. It's just we have to buy into it. And that's my point. I think, personally, I'd like to wait even a couple of years, because in a couple of years, I think this whole landscape will change, and we might be more willing to buy into something like that. But that's, I won't belabor the point.
Councillor Hoekstra.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I guess I support this motion in principle, but I just want to ask a question of clarification. This motion, though, is asking how this would impact other priorities we have. Is that correct? Is that the intent? So it won't necessarily go through if it impacts a priority that we don't want to be pushed down the ladder, if that makes sense. Like now we're just looking at it in the context of the garbage and the value we get for it. But what if by moving this strategy up, it pushes something else down that we're not okay with? This is sort of a two-pronged motion, if I understand it correctly. Is that right?
Councillor Hibbs.
Yeah, I mean, I would largely agree with that, that obviously by moving this up, that's going to change, you know, the existing timeline, and that's what we're asking administration to bring back is, you know, what does that look like? And I suppose the expectation is that we would have some input on, you know, that new schedule saying, you know, almost, but not quite, we don't like this, whatever, we don't think that it reflects. I mean, really my goal here is just to move this up. I really feel that second quarter 2021 is way too late. The term is practically done. All the conversations we've had maybe all lost, like, you know, all for naught. And I really think that this is that big that it needs to be moved up. And then I just want to address the point that was made by Councillor Connex. I don't think that anybody's disputing the fact that there are some fantastic technologies out there. And I am all over that. I saw Sustain in person, did the tour. I mean, something like that, whether it's that one or something like that, I mean, there is no trouble buying into it. The problem is the initial capital and the development of it. And, you know, those things are done, like in the example of Sustain, that is not a municipal project, that is a company that comes in and sets that up. So, you know, this area has to attract that company, whatever that company is, to set up shop and start taking, you know, our product, if you want to call it that. So that's the only problem. And you know that you know, that research and development to decide, you know, where a company's going to go, get all their capital funding, financing in order, start construction, like, you know, we're talking years and years and years. And frankly, I just don't want to wait that. Like, we need to address this now. We need to, you know, attack some of that, you know, fiscal bleeding that we're having in this section. We've identified, you know, potentially, you know, area after area after area that we could, you know, make better. So let's do it. So let's just say we're going to make this a higher priority, get on it, make an impact, and then, you know, as the landscape changes, and Lord, I hope it does, you know, we'll be set up already for it with the most efficient system that we have at the time, and hopefully that transition will be relatively seamless. If it's something like Sustain, it would be relatively seamless.
Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I guess I want to see what value, I want to hear what value, what possible value we could get for a possible cost of, I'm just estimating, correct me if I'm wrong, or ballpark estimate, it's $50,000. We provide a service of picking up our one-stop garbage and transporting it to the Lacombe Regional Solid Waste Authority that is a totally separate entity of Lacombe service. And I just don't, I'm trying to grasp around the value, because if we're gonna, hypothetically, somebody wants the 12 rollouts and another pickup. So then you've got the rollouts at a cost X times 4,000 residents. That could be I have no idea. Another $500,000 to buy rollouts for the city or more. And I just think we get way more value by having a farther in-depth study with hypothetical Blackfalls that's not affiliated with Lacombe Regional Solid Waste Authority for whatever reason, that there's to get more value with collaborating with other municipalities. I think Lacombe Regional Solid Waste Authority should be possibly involved, because in my opinion, why aren't they marketing themselves to sustainable energy or fog option, so that together with the whole, basically the whole county, there is a huge resource of material to justify another environmental option, you know, including Black Falls or Panoka or wherever the community may be. I just think it's too high of a cost for such, what results are we going to get? And that's my concern.
Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. With all due respect, I think the points you're bringing up continually are actually the questions that we're going to find out in the audit, which is exactly why we want to do the audit. Why don't we investigate looking at a more regional model? Why don't we look at doing bi-weekly? Why don't, like, these are the things that we're going to talk about. So, great questions. Let's do the audit.
Yeah, and my feeling, the audit, I really would like us not to do an audit, an external audit at this time. I'd like us to try and fix what we have. You talked about different rollouts, for example. I think that would be a great option for us, like for me personally, because we have one bag of garbage a week in our household. So I would love to see a system that offered us, you know, the opportunity to have whatever rollout you wanted. If you wanted a bigger one for a larger family, or a smaller one where it's just a couple. As far as the audit goes, I think it's going to come for sure, but I would just like us to get in a position right now where we're looking at maximizing what we're getting for our dollars. And I think that having that information from administration would be great. I know some of it has not been available to us, right? For a while, we haven't been able to get some of it. So it would be nice to get it, and then at that point make that decision regarding the audit. Any further discussion on the motion? Councillor Hoekstra?
You saw it. Well, because I keep the review or audit. We are just asking for a review at this point. Does that absolutely mean that it'll be a full-fledged audit? Like, I guess what I'm still hearing from Councillor Hibbs is that to show to our citizens that they are receiving fair value for what they're paying. Is that a complete audit? Like what is getting, I guess CEO Gowdy, what does our strategic plan say? Is this a review or an audit?
I can take a look at what the actual language is, but it is a review. So we have always foreseen that as an external review. It's, as you described, if you want citizens to buy in that this is an independent, unbiased review that's comparing your system or our system against the best practices in the industry. As a resident, I would sort of feel like, well, there's an inherent bias in you reviewing your own system and saying, yeah, you're doing a great job. How can you possibly be an expert in the field who's going to know all the best practices out in the industry? If that were the case, why aren't you already doing it? So I think we can go down the route of an internal review. Mr. Thompson, experienced man, 0 solid waste reviews under your belt, I would say, at this stage. Is that fair? So if we can definitely do it, it's just going to be more administrative effort to learn to do something the first time and sort of get up to speed on what all those best management practices are that are out in the industry versus bringing in an expert. I've heard concerns about the $50,000 fee and sort of like what's the payoff. If you look at the next 3 years of your solid waste budget, you're spending nearly $10 million in expenses. So the $50,000 fee, you're around half a percent. If you can improve your system by 0.5%, then you will see that money come back. And I would say, I've done some of the same research as Councillor Hibbs. When you look at what some comparable municipalities are able to offer in terms of service levels versus the cost that they're charging for that, and there is some assumptions there that they're fully cost recovering based on utility rates and not augmented by taxes, but I think that's probably the case. I suspect that you will be able to find better than 0.5% improvements.
Thank you, CEO Gowdy. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Forgive me for asking again, Councillor Hibbs, what was Pinoca's rate and what's ours? I got Black Falls, Red Deers, and Sutherlands. Sorry, I was just curious of numbers again. I couldn't make that fast enough.
So, it was Pinoca that you were asking, sorry?
Yeah.
What I have written down is $26 a month, which is unchanged from last year. However, their service has changed. I don't know if you...
Contractor.
Well, they changed contractors, but yeah, their service has changed a bit, but $26 a month, apparently the new, whatever they're doing now is save some money, so, but yes, $26 a month.
So Black Falls is 27, Red Deer is 22, Silver Lake's 25, and ours currently is?
$31.76.
Councillor Jacobson.
Sorry, so is there a motion on the floor with this?
Yes,
That's how this works?
Yeah.
Okay, so that is like the...
That is the motion.
Okay. Can we call the question?
I haven't called the question. Your light is on.
I'd like to call the question.
I will call the question. If nobody else has any more questions or any more information, CEO Gotti.
Sorry, I just wanted to make one more point about the possible value of an audit, of an external audit. If you were to assume that we could get down to $25, which would be aggressive, but other communities are below that even, that's savings of about $7 per month per household in Lacombe. You have about 5,000 homes in Lacombe, so $7 a month times 5,000 homes times 12 months, you're at nearly $400,000 just from that. So I think if there is an opportunity to improve the system, and I believe there is, we've heard lots of good ideas, I think, individually, you will see that money come back quite quickly.
Sorry, one last question. When you do an audit, will they do a comparable private sector scenarios that gives them options?
Well, I think the scope of the audit would be developed with probably the reps on the Solid Waste Commission as well as council's endorsement and review. But I would say that definitely some of the municipalities that you're going to be comparing against will have privatized collection already, so necessarily you'll be doing some comparison against private service.
But all these other communities aren't with the Lacombe Regional Solid Waste Authority, so we don't even have really control over the cost recovery because it's under this Solid Waste Authority. Is that correct?
A component of your system, for sure, the sort of like tipping fee at the apprentice is out of your control. There's still a large part of the system's cost, the collection side, that is within your control and I think is comparable from our municipality to others.
What's under our control?
So the collection that happens within, yeah, the collection only.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, I would call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, we have another notice of motion from Councillor Ross. Would you like to read yours, please?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My motion is to direct administration to develop. Oh, my apologies. My motion is to direct administration to develop a 3-month neighborhood pilot project to gauge public feedback and operational impacts from reducing solid waste collection from weekly to bi-weekly. I feel like and I'm only from our household, but I could go a month. And to no disrespect to other families or households that are of higher numbers per household, we are actually a third of the way into our term already. We're 16 months into a 48-month term of our council, and I think we have a responsibility to try to look at options of efficiencies and to review. I know, for example, Ponoka just went to a private contractor and their pickup is every other week. And I apologize that I don't know the size of the cube of their containers to compare apples to apples, but I think it's an opportunity to engage to our citizens with public feedback by asking some maybe 1 or 2 specific subdivisions within the city to participate in the survey and just hypothetically, possibly at the end, with the city's support of rewarding them with a community block party of that specific subdivision for participating with the efforts of administration and our city solid waste collection area to try to emphasize that we're trying to create efficiencies within our service to benefit the costs of back to our citizens. So as what Councillor Hibbs' passion is to bring it up to evaluate costs, I guess I would like to get more hands-on to get some feedback for our administration that just one area that I think we should try to get into some areas of exploring cost efficiencies.
Councillor Jacobson.
So just unclear, so you want to pick a neighborhood and have it like as a pilot project for
every other week pickup instead of every week.
Okay, and if families, so everybody gets it regardless?
Yes.
Okay, so they wouldn't, okay. All right, I guess the only reason I'm just thinking of my house, like we go through a bag a day. Like I would be like, I have a backyard, I have a bin in the back, so it's kind of okay, but even that bin is like by Thursday, it's completely, like there's garbage all beside it because there's so much garbage on my street. So would there be some sort of contingency if it's clearly not working, that they could roll back?
Hypothetically, at the water station, say if it's Henner's, which obviously you and I both live in, you could possibly have extra dumpsters at the water station in the event if it doesn't work for certain individuals, and then we know, or that's just an idea.
And so just so I understand that the intent of this is just to create some actual on-the-ground feedback for an idea, and potentially dovetail that into a future plan. Is that what the purpose behind this was?
Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So I was just curious, when you were sort of researching this, did you find that communities that do bi-weekly, are they more inclined to be offering a full service type of solid waste? So for example, in order to reduce because many households of course would have to reduce their garbage, but by doing that they need to then be able to divert. So what maybe used to go into the black bag would now go into the green bin or the blue bin, right? And of course we all do have little blue bins, but I mean that would be, to me, that seems to be the most obvious way to be able to reduce how often your garbage is being picked up, is now being able to have more options for diverting it. So was that something that came up in when you were looking at different communities?
No, we obviously still have the recycle pickup. Obviously that's not going to change. I guess I looked at For example, in Innisfail, you're allowed 2 big black bags, and that's it. Then you have to purchase a tag over and above that. So therefore, then I think they are restricted on the amount. You know, I guess it's just it's an opportunity for information and public feedback. And like I said, if that means changing the ratio of dumpsters per household to make every other week pickup work in the future, if that's so desired, then like I say, it's an opportunity for public engagement and feedback, and just an area of interest.
Councillor Connex?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Gogson. Yeah, so kudos to you, Councillor Ross, for not generating a lot of garbage. I get it, there's only 2 people in your household. There's 6 in mine. I don't have a rollout, thankfully. I have a big bin. If I did have a rollout, it'd be full every week. And my blue box is full every week. So I have a bit of a problem with this. I pay a lot of taxes in this community, as we all do. And if you're suggesting I stockpile my garbage for 2 weeks, I'm not going to be happy. So there's a lot of red flags here for me. I can't support this motion. I don't know which lucky neighborhood you're going to point at and say, you go to bi-weekly. Have fun with that. I think this. I kudos to you for trying to think of some ideas to save some money. I don't think this is it. I think this could be, like you said, you're looking for public feedback. Well, then just ask people. You know, would you be open to that? But don't actually run this project, because it. Again, if this were my neighborhood and I had a rollout, I would lose it, because I'd be bringing my garbage to your house, because I'm not stockpiling it for 2 weeks. No way.
I know my daughter ended up being, I think, 3 weeks at Christmas, just where it fell on theirs. And it was a disaster for them, so. And they had 6 people in their house. I know some of the areas that I looked at, and like I say, I look at garbage all over the place when we travel. And the one had like bi-weekly pickup, but in between they did like the recycling and their compost and different things. So there was only, when they said it was bi-weekly pickup, it was only certain products. The other products were picked up on the opposite weeks. So there was always continuous garbage pickup. It was just different garbage at each time they came. So there's a lot of models out there. I'd like to see anything that could possibly save us some money, especially save our citizens some money. And hopefully this would work, but I'm afraid, like in Councillor Connex's situation, there's no way you'd be able to do it. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I guess my concern, it's again a creative idea of how to maybe engage people with a thought process, how to reduce their garbage. And I understand that too, but I too had a household of 6, and I know what that looked like on a weekly basis. But I think maybe it would be better just to research more communities where there's been kind of an educational process along with that. Because I have a friend who used to live in the East, and then they had to really think about when they ordered their pizza, because they could not throw all those boxes in the waste every week, and or that week, because they had hit their quota or something like that. I kind of agree we might have some negative impact with this project, in that the neighborhood that gets picked might be resentful. Rather than seeing it as a positive gesture or a positive project to learn something new. I still am on the reduce piece. How can we talk to our citizens about really looking at their purchases and how to reduce making different decisions that way? But kudos to you for presenting the idea.
Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just a question to Director Thompson or CO Gowdy. Are we charged per household for recycling or per container that's per household? Does that make sense? Per household. Mm-hmm. So therefore, if a resident so chooses to have more than one blue box, is that an option for
Residents can have more than one blue box. They can also use a blue bag, or is it a third option?
They can neatly stack their recyclables in a box right beside their blue bin when it's set out as well.
So hypothetically, if we did it in a small enough subdivision, you could leave an option open to have more blue box containers to therefore encourage recycling, which then therefore would have less waste.
Yeah, you said that would be an option for sure, to advise them they're part of this pilot project, and they can just remind them, I guess, of their options for blue bin diversion. I guess like Councillor Hibbs, I think a lot of the times that I have seen bi-weekly collection, it is concurrently that community is delivering some sort of composting or organics collection, which we wouldn't necessarily be also offering at the same time.
When you increase the amount of blue box, you want to make sure it's the right material. Correct? Are we not charged for tonnage also?
We are not also charged for tonnage. That would be an interesting, I guess, if this project were to go ahead, it would be interesting to see what the contamination rates for that blue bin program, because you wouldn't want to see someone get frustrated and just start throwing everything in the blue bin.
Councillor Connex?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Gallagher. Like I say, it's a novel idea as a standalone motion. No, not for me anyways. But again, in light of the motion that was previously passed, perhaps these very ideas can be explored within that review.
Any further discussion on the motion on the floor? No? And then I'll call the motion. I'll call all in favor.
We'll put doing Henry's then.
Opposed? Motion was defeated. Yeah. Okay, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the purchase of a Connex van. Director Thompson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Before Council tonight is a recommendation from administration to replace a Connex van from Star Bus Sales for $102,400. This is a end-of-life replacement for a unit that is currently budgeted at $98,464. And so the RFP, which was let out, received 4 submissions, one of which was deemed non-compliant, and the remaining 3 were scored against the criteria in request for proposal. Star Bus Sales was the recommended vendor with the highest scoring unit, factoring the price and the specifications that they included on their unit. In 2008, the city received an anonymous donation of $5,000 to put towards the replacement of the Connex unit, and so this is a generous donation towards the Connex system, and so we're recommending applying that donation towards the replacement of this unit, and in doing so brings the value in which the city expected to contribute towards this unit to slightly below the budget price. But overall, the bus did come in slightly higher than budgeted. So administration's recommendation is to proceed with the purchase.
Councillor Connex.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Gallagher. So, in light of the fact that Connex lost a major contract not too long ago, I kind of wonder if maybe the prudent thing to do would just go to a fleet of 2 buses as opposed to 3, and maybe we don't do this just yet. Is there any thought given to that? Or I'm just concerned we're going to buy another new bus and it's going to sit a lot of the time because there's just no use.
So thank you, Councillor Connex. So to clarify, that
Connex bus did not lose a contract. The contract with Wolf Creek School Division is still in effect. The use that Wolf Creek School Division is putting Connex to in the next little while will be lower than it has been for a couple of years. We've been transporting 8 students for, I think, 4 or 5 years without a change. And that's now been scaled back to 1 student, and that's because the other students no longer need the high level of service that Connex provides. The contract is still valid. It is built to be a fluctuating contract. So the Wolf Creek School Division can, for example, change the number of students that are riding the bus with just 7 days notice. They can also increase the number of children that are riding the bus with 7 days notice. And we have assured them that at this present time, unless they're interested in opening the contract is valid, and demand for service can happen at any time in the course of this year. So we're sort of on standby. That actually does not affect, that's not directly related to this acquisition. This new bus is replacing a very old, the oldest of the 3 units that are currently in possession, the city owns. When the new bus is acquired, the oldest bus will be taken out of the fleet and sold, or whatever we can do with it. Should the contract with Wolf Creek School Division actually disappear, or any other service demands just decrease so much that we won't need 3 buses, we would take the oldest in the fleet and sell that one, or take it out of service. Currently, the 3rd bus that is in service right now is not a reliable unit and is costing quite a bit to keep it going.
Councillor Connex.
If I may follow, so just one clarification, so there was no decrease in revenue then from that Wolf Creek? The revenue stayed the same? I was under the impression that there was a decrease in revenue as well.
Yes, it's a significant decrease in revenue, and FCSS together with the Community Services Department are making plans for seeking new revenue streams elsewhere. We've just begun that process, and the CAO Gowdy is aware of that, and we are coming up with a plan for additional revenue streams to try and make up some of the deficit. But we won't know till much further in the year whether or not the revenue from Wolf Creek School Division will in fact be as low as it looks like it will be now, because it's subject to change.
CEO Gowdy?
When Director Juke says significant, the estimate is pending any change would be about $30,000 to $35,000, somewhere in that range of lost revenue.
Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I have also passed on information today to Director Lush, and as previously spoke to Matthew Gowdy, that there may be options with AHS in terms of medical appointments with EMS. Lon McKellar, I'll be meeting him on Wednesday as with another topic, and I will further encourage him to contact our director to pertain to that opportunity, because he did express interest on transporting patients for medical and dialysis appointments, to expanding that to the Red Deer Hospital. So.
Okay, we do need somebody to make that motion. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Gullickson. I will make that motion that Council direct administration to purchase the 2019 Lacombe District FCSS paratransit bus from Starbus Sales Inc. for $102,400 plus GST.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, I call the motion. All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay, we will move on to reports, and I'm on the top of the list, so I'll go first. February 2nd, attended the Macomb Lake of the torch relay for the Canada Winter Games. That was a lot of fun. Councillor Hoekstra and I walked with the mayor. He didn't run, of course, he walked, but that wasn't surprising. And it was very cold, but an enjoyable experience, and I liked it very much. And the crowd was exceptional considering the temperatures. Then I put on something that I haven't put on there before that I do on a regular basis is Meals on Wheels. And I delivered those the past week, and I enjoy that anytime I get an opportunity to do it and see the people that are shut in and can't make their own meals for whatever reasons or just can't get out. It's a good experience, and I recommend it to anybody to do it if they have the opportunity. And then I'll call on Councillor Hibbs.
I don't have a report submitted because I was away, so I will.
Sorry about that. I just went by the list.
Okay.
I'll go with. We'll go with the one that's here, Councillor Hoekstra.
Thank you. Yeah, I neglected to list here our great run in the cold. That was it was a really fun community day, and I don't know how I didn't put it on my list. But the other two things there, I attended again. I will be busy with Lacombe Foundation. They are hoping to, part of this redevelopment project, they are this community engagement piece. I think they now slated March 12th for, they're hoping community members will gather at some place that has to be determined yet to give feedback about what they would like this redevelopment to look like. Yeah, it's exciting. And then the Lacombe Chamber had their board meeting the other day, and the report is there.
Thank you. Councillor Connex.
My report is there.
Thank you. And I believe that's all the reports we have on file this time.
I don't, but I just, I noticed that you had the Bolt, you had the Bolt meeting a couple of times there, and then we did have a Bolt meeting this afternoon. Maybe there would be an opportunity to provide an update as to when that's coming back to the next.
I was going to provide an update at the next council meeting as I submitted this on Wednesday. But no, I could talk about it. Yeah, we met again in Bolt today. It was a productive meeting, actually. It was a much better meeting than we've had in the past. We've presented some options. They are aware of the notice of motion that is on the agenda tonight, and I think that helped facilitate some further discussion as to what we need to be doing going forward. And we have some options that will be presented at the next council meeting, I believe. There will be a presentation made by Bolt, if I'm not mistaken, to discuss those options. They center around an express idea of an express route. But that's all I'll delve into for right now. You'll get it, because I could talk more about it, but you'll see the presentation, and then we'll have an opportunity then at that next council meeting to discuss then, in light of that presentation, the notice of motion.
Thanks. Thank you, Councillor Connex. Appreciate that. Any other questions come out of the reports? Oh.
Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I do actually just have a couple comments on Councillor Connick's report. I really appreciated the statistics from the Police Commission meeting. I like seeing those. It's you know, when you're having conversations out there in the community with, you know, around LPS, whatever, it is nice to sometimes know some of these numbers, so I do appreciate that. With regards to Bolt, you know, again, thank you for the further update. I'm happy actually to hear that things are happening, because that was a bit of a frustrating situation last time, the discussion that we had. The one thing that I would ask, however, though, you know, like we do get in our mailbox from other committees and commissions, et cetera, I'd like to see the minutes. I think that's a fair request, so if you wouldn't mind asking that of that that committee, if they could forward minutes so they could be included in our mailbox. Not that I don't like your synopsis or summaries, but it would be just nice to actually read the minutes, and it would be good also for the community members to see that as well.
No, and absolutely, that's fair, and that was actually brought up at the meeting today that there actually should be a set of minutes in here, and they were excluded, so that you will see that going forward, absolutely.
Councillor Hoekstra?
Thank you. In light of that comment about the minutes, I would really like clear direction which committees we should be supplying minutes from. I'm just following tradition, and nothing that I sit on has typically supplied minutes. Is that at my discretion as a councillor? Because to the art collection minutes were in this time, and I don't think we've seen those before, and there couldn't have been a meeting after it to approve them. So do they have to be approved minutes? I guess I meant to bring that up with the council mailbox earlier, but what is the rule?
We do not have a consistent rule at this time. That is definitely an issue, and in this particular instance, that was what happened, was that there was a draft form and it hadn't been fully adopted, and so it didn't come forward, although was adopted, but somehow it didn't. I think that is one of the things that we absolutely have to nail down when we are going through a review of committees and agendas, is what the expectation is of these committees. And my personal feeling is that the minutes, if council is dedicating some of your time, and we are hopefully dedicating some administrative support to that committee, then I think minutes and an agenda are an absolute minimum expectation. But I think that's something that Director Juke and I are working on as we try to move through our committee review. It is a complex review, I guess, is what we've come into.
Councillor Ross, do you have another comment?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Getting back to Director Moore and Councillor Connex, my apologies. Getting back to responsibilities within the Police Commission. Obviously, you represent a number of individuals in cells and so forth. Could we possibly have maybe quarterly a report on the crime or changes or what areas or statistics within the city of Lacombe? Because I was on the Cattlemen's Bonspiel last weekend, and there was a pretty significant event that happened that, and I guess it's a toss-up. How much do people need to know? How much do people want to know? And yet it's kind of I think we have the response from the Lacombe Police that this incident was excellent and successful, but it was a fairly pertinent event that took place and sometimes it's, there's that, should you tell, is it, and so forth. It's, and I guess every community has its challenges within what criminal activity is happening, what areas of interest can we improve on. For example, community liaison, they're on the responsibilities of them, how we can interact in the community, for example, to do better engagement, citizens on patrol, for example. And I think, there's areas of stronger collaboration and communication that engage the citizens, that we could maybe improve our crime severity index by better engagement and support of some of these groups. I guess I think sometimes there's more of the story to be told, I guess, and when do you tell it or how much do you disclose?
So my only comments would be to that. First, operationally, that's entirely the purview of the Lacombe Police Commission and Police Chief. So in terms of what the community liaison officer does or when or what's being, that's for them to decide. As for the pertinent incident that occurred, I don't even know what this is. I'll probably find out the Lacombe Police Commission. I'm not going to comment on the gossip or rumors I've heard. All I've heard is it's a good news story. There was an incident, the police responded, individuals arrested. That's great. Now, if you want breakdown weekly statistics of the arrest that was made, well, at the end of the day, we have a terrific police service and they're doing their job really well. And I think that's more our bottom line than anything else. I mean, we do a yearly report. Obviously, there's an annual report that's done every year. Again, I can certainly ask the police commission if they want to do a quarterly report in terms of crimes and solve rates and statistics and all that, but I don't know if that's entirely relevant. But clearly you're one of those individuals that likes to know what's going on all the time, everywhere. For me, not so much. I mean, as long as they're doing their job, which they do, that's all I need. I'll bring forth your suggestion.
Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just wanted to add to, as somebody who does sit on, or has sat on, the Neighborhood Watch, which is part of, like, underneath the umbrella of the Community Association, which does Citizens on Patrol and parent, block parent, et cetera, they do liaise with that officer. So, I mean, those things do exist. So I don't think there's too much concern there. I guess that's just really all I want to say is just be careful about making assumptions that what's happening or maybe not happening, but is happening.
Okay, if we have no further discussion regarding the reports, we'll move on to notice of motions. Oh, thank you. Can I get a motion to accept the reports as information? Thank you, Councillor Connex. All those in favor? Approved. So we'll move on to number 11, notices of motion. Councillor Ross, you can read your motion.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My notice of motion is to direct administration to provide exit strategy options of the Bolt bus with consideration of its regional partners and the residents of the city of Macomb.
Thank you for that. We have no discussion on that at this time. It's just a notification. This will be what date?
That motion will appear for council's deliberation on February the 25th. The same meeting that we will have a presentation from the Bolt Committee on the direction they have recommended for the councils to move on Bolt.
Thank you for that. We have no in-camera items, so somebody's going to be real happy tonight. Look at that. See, that's...
I think everybody is.
Yeah, well, one person...
I would like to move to adjourn at 7:51, if that clock's correct. What's up there, 7:51?
Thank you for that.